Joseph in the text this morning, we look at Joseph, and for those 60, 65 people that were in Sunday school this morning, this should be a reminder. This should be very familiar to you because you learned about it this morning. But there is about another, maybe 100 or so folks that was not in Sunday school this morning. So this might be new to you today as we deal with the life of Joseph. And so if I can share with you just a few things. Not everybody knows about Joseph. Joseph was one of 12 sons of Jacob. He was one of his father's favorite sons. Come on, somebody. You know the story in Genesis 37. He gave his favorite son, out of the 12, and gave him a colorful coat. And Joseph had a gift at a very early age. And he was talented and gifted, but yet he was oftentimes confused with being overconfident. Come on, somebody. Got any Bible readers in here? His brothers they hated on him because he was able to interpret dreams. And that upset his older brothers. And the fact is, the story goes on, and when you get a chance, you read it, 37 and 38, and find that his older brothers were jealous of him. And they conspired. They had a conspiracy going on. What are we going to do with our little brother? It goes on to let them know that as they went out one day, they decided to kill their only family member. Come on, somebody. His own brothers were going to kill Joseph. And after they've got together, they had a little family meeting. At ours, we have some what's called family meetings, where we get together and discuss some very important. Y'all have family meetings? Come on, somebody. You're looking at me like I don't know what I'm talking about. You know, when there's an issue with the family, you got to call everybody together. There's some important news that you need to share. You bring in everybody. But this time, they brought in the brothers. They didn't bring in the father nor Joseph. They got together and decided that we need to do something about our little brother. What I'm saying, we can't kill him. We can't shed his own precious blood, but let's just put him away. Let's sell him. Let's sell him to some slaves and some foreigners. And it goes on that they put him in a well. And in fact, this is God's child, Jacob's son. They put him in a well, and as the story goes on, it talks about how they decided not to kill him. They were sitting there deciding, what are we going to do with our little brother? And then some folks came by, and they decided, some Ishmaelites came by, and they sold their brother for 20 shekels. Come on, somebody. They sold their little brother into slavery. That's the story. We're just going to deal with some adversity, because if anybody had to deal with some adversity, I think Joseph can help us this morning. The fact, even the brothers, they tried to cover up some things. And you know how it is if you've ever lied about something. If you ever lied about something and try to cover some things up, you know every now and then it's going to come back up again. And they tried to get their situation together. They said, what are we going to do with his robe? And so they decided to dip it in some goat's blood and take it back to the father and say, well, look, I think some wild beasts got our little brother. Well, to me, that don't make any sense to me, but I'm just a parent, and there were some things growing up. Maybe you're in this category. Have you ever tried to tell a story and thought your parents didn't know what was going on? Oh, come on, somebody. Y'all never had a sleepover at somebody else's house? Come on, somebody. Now, y'all been saved all your life. Where they were trying to basically cover up their sin. Come on, somebody. They was trying to cover up what they had already done. Like nobody was ever going to find out. Well, the fact is, you know the story. It leads us up into our text. We find that Joseph is now in slavery. And if I can share some things with you, no doubt it was an adverse situation. Let me share 3 quick things with you and we'll be out of here. Number 1, no matter what you're dealing with right now, I don't know what you're facing. It could be in your finances, relationships, job, ministry, no matter what it is, Brother Smith, you can handle your adversity because you ought to stay faithful to God. This might be simple for somebody this morning, but the first thing you need to remember, in the midst of your adversity, in the midst of what you're going through, your trials and your tribulations, ups, downs, highs and lows, stay faithful to God.
Yes, sir.
Come on, somebody. I got some believers talking to the believers this morning. Stay faithful to God. Stay faithful to your calling. When you decided to accept Him as your Lord and Savior, stay faithful to Him just like you would in a marriage.
Yes, sir.
Come on, so here we go in the text. Look at verse 39. Verse 39, number 1, we see that the faithfulness. It says, now Joseph had been taken down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, captain of the guard, Egyptian, brought him from the Ishmaelites who had taken him down there. Verse number 2 says, the Lord was with Joseph, and he was a successful man, and he was in the house of his master, the Egyptian. No doubt that we see in the text this morning that he was faithful. Okay,
Right.
Why was he faithful? Why is that going to help me this morning? Because he was placed in charge in Potiphar's house. Because God was taking care of him all along. He was faithful to his calling. The fact that he was in charge of everything in Potiphar's house. No doubt everything, Potiphar had him in command. What does that got to do with faithfulness? Well, the faithful comes in is while he was going to and fro, doing what the master, doing what Potiphar had asked him to do, here comes Potiphar's wife.
Yes, sir.
Imagine him being Potiphar, being a man of nobleness, a man of high stature. I'm speculating that Potiphar's wife was fine. Come on, somebody. I'm just speculating that she was gorgeous and she was somebody to look at. If it was a he, let me put the women in, he was tall, dark, and handsome. Potiphar, as he was going about, you know the story, and I'm talking about faithfulness because he was faithful to God while she was watching him, and he wasn't watching her, but she kept watching him day in and day out. He was a 17-year-old stud, and probably he was built pretty good, and he probably looked pretty good. And the fact that she had her eye on him, and it came to a time where when everybody was gone, and I don't want y'all, don't go down memory lane on me right now. You remember when everybody was gone and nobody was around, she tried to get this young man to sleep with her. I'm in the text, right? That in the Bible. The fact that the master's wife. Look at verse number 7. Let me show you. Verse number 7. It says, and it came to pass after these things, the master's wife cast longing eyes on Joseph. Look what she says. Lie with me.
Yes, sir.
And no doubt, I don't know how many brothers or sisters would have done what Joseph didn't do. Okay, all right now. Y'all been faithful in all your relationships. I know y'all have. Sister Smith, I know everybody's been faithful. The fact is, he remained faithful to his calling.
Yes, sir.
He did not yield to temptation. Matter of fact, he tried to run away from temptation. And not everybody strong enough on their own, by their own flesh, to run away from temptation. You remember David? David saw Bathsheba. He was tempted from afar. But here we find Joseph, Potiphar's wife, is in reaching distance. And I like this because he stayed faithful in the midst of his temptation. And I don't know what your temptation is this morning. It might be that man, it might be that woman, it might be food, drugs, alcohol. I don't know what it is. A temptation is something that will turn you away from God. A temptation will allow you to lose focus of what God has called you to do. That temptation might be your wife, your husband, child, boss, job, house, or cars. If it's something that will take you away from your relationship with God. It didn't happen with Joseph. Joseph remained faithful. And I like that because he never complained. He didn't murmur. He didn't get texted to tell him where he got down on himself. He didn't gossip. He didn't get mad. He stayed faithful. The text, verse number 8 says, look at his response. And that ought to be all of our responses. He said to her, while he was being faithful, he refused and said to his master's wife, look, my master does not know what it is with me in the house. And he has committed all that he's had under my hand. There is no one greater in this house than I, nor has he kept back anything from me but you. Because you are his wife, how then can I do this great wickedness, check this out, and sin against God? I like this because he's faithful, not to her, not to Potiphar, but is faithful to God. And so the challenge in the midst of your adversity, stay faithful to God. It may not look good right now. She may look good right now. He may look good right now, but you're married. Oh, come on, somebody. Here we go. Stay faithful to God. Faithful because when you're faithful to God, problems lead you to praise. Your circumstances will not change your character. Come on, somebody. His brothers could not stop his blessings, and his enemy became his footstool. So not only must you be faithful to God, know if you're faithful to God, he will show you favor in the midst of your adversity. Come on, somebody. He'll show you favor. He'll do some things for you that you don't even deserve. Look at the text this morning. In the text, we find God's favor all throughout chapter 39. You find, look what he did. After he had the fact is, you know the story, she got mad with him, and she told on him that she made some things up. She lied, said that he sexually assaulted her, he did this and he did that, and there was no witnesses but him or her. That's right. And so as a husband and the king, Potiphar, he decided, look, man, you cannot be messing with my wife. Come on, can't mess with anybody's wife, let alone him. He could have been thrown in jail, he could have been killed, but yet here comes some of God's favor. They put him in prison. And somebody might say, that's not favor, Sister Walker. You might say, that's not no favor. He went from the palace, Potiphar's house, into prison. To me, that doesn't seem like favor, but when you look in the text, the favor comes in because the prison warden had heard about Joseph. Yes, sir. And he placed Joseph in charge of the prison. That don't make no sense to me. Come on, somebody. Does that make sense? He's now over the prison. That's favor. Yes, sir. He was placed in charge of the prison. And I don't know about you, but he had favor even while he was in the pit, whether he was in Potiphar's house, and now he's in prison. Don't make no sense to me. If anybody could have got down and out, it should have been Joseph. If anybody would have got up and said, God, I'm done serving you. If this is what's going to get me, serving you, telling people about the gospel, I'm done with this. I don't want to be no part of your program because now I'm in prison. And I was doing the right thing. I'm not guilty of what they told me I did. And so we find him in prison. Text goes on to say that he had favor because he was faithful to God. And I don't know, have you received God's favor in the midst of your adversity? The fact is, lastly, let me share this with you and I'm done. That Joseph will teach us that no matter what's going on in your life, stay faithful. Sounds simple, but the enemy wants you to be unfaithful. The enemy wants you to think, makes you think that God is not present in your life. Stay faithful. Just like the vows you've made to God. You know the prayers that you said, God, if you get me out of this situation, I'll serve you till I die. God, if you can deliver me, y'all know the prayers, deliver me, and I'll never do this again. But he also had favor. Not when he was on the high, the mountain high, not when he was, the most healthiest. You know, that you can have favor when you're broke. Come on, somebody. Favor, you may not have a mansion or the most cars, but you still can have favor with God.